When I was 5 years old and my elder sister was just starting school, my dad quit his steady job. He came home and told my mum, "I'm going to start my own business." My mum burst into tears. They had 2 kids and a mortgage. How were they to make ends meet? My dad didn't come from immense privilege. He never earned a bachelor's degree, but he was hungry for success and wanted better for his children. So he scrapped together all of his savings and invested everything into his new advertising business. After 5 years of hard work, the business was struggling and his co-founders quit. Undeterred, my dad remortgaged our house to raise funds and pressed on without them. Over the next 20 years, he painstakingly bootstrapped his business, taking measured risks and working relentlessly to ensure the success of his organization. He worked tirelessly to provide a better life for his family, and today his business employs over 50 people. Although my accent betrays the fact that my dad's success was in Australia rather than America, my dad lived his own version of the American dream. But my dad was one of the lucky ones. We know that today, for most people, the American dream is a myth. 64% of the wealth of the United States is held by the top 10% of families. A child's chance of earning more than his or her parents has plummeted from 90 to 50%. And the key determinant of your financial outcome in life is whether you were born into a wealthy family. America has a long history of systemic racism and unequal access to opportunity. Many remedies have been proposed and many remedies are needed. But I'm a tax nerd. And from my perspective, one important remedy is to reshape our tax code so that we focus on taxing wealth rather than income. Yes, my friends, this is a talk about taxes. My father accumulated his wealth through hard work, and he paid his fair share of income taxes. But our tax code can't end there. His wealth now self-perpetuates more wealth, and I, as his son, am one of the undeserving beneficiaries. So how does a tax nerd like myself propose to change this dynamic? I want to suggest 2 possible wealth taxes. First, an inheritance tax. An inheritance tax, also known as an estate tax, is a tax on the assets transferred from deceased persons to their heirs. Inheritance taxes have a long history. Augustus, the first Roman emperor, imposed the tax on 1/20th of inheritance in 6 AD. In the US, the first inheritance tax was adopted in 1797. But recently, inheritance taxes have been on the decline. In 1976, the highest inheritance tax in America was 77%. Today, it is just 40%. Simultaneously, the exemption threshold, the amount that can be passed down tax-free, has continuously risen. With the tax reform in 2017, the tax-free threshold for estate taxes is $22.8 million for married couples. Let me say that again. Today, if you are a married couple with less than $22.8 million in assets, you don't pay $1 of estate tax. Some see this situation as justified. There's a righteous belief among some that American freedom demands that people should be able to hand their private property to their children, and that any estate tax represents dreaded double taxation. They say, "My parents have already paid tax on these assets. Why should they have to pay them again?" But these arguments overlook the fact that a significant portion of family wealth is earned from unrealized capital gains. That is, the increase in the value of assets like stocks and bonds. These unrealized capital gains have never been taxed. And more importantly, the people who inherit the estate have done nothing to earn this inheritance. I ask again, why am I entitled to the fruits of my dad's hard work? Letting fortunes pass across generations risks creating a hereditary elite. This is antithetical to America's spirit of rewarding enterprise above bloodline. The Constitution prohibits the US government from granting titles of nobility. So why should Americans allow nobility in all but title? For those like myself who treasure the dynamism and innovation of the American economy, an inheritance tax is one of the most efficient ways for the government to raise revenue. Unlike income taxes, they do not reduce the incentive to work. Unlike capital gains taxes, it doesn't dissuade saving or investment. And unlike sales taxes, it's progressive. As we search for efficient ways to help close the wealth gap, inheritance taxes are part of the answer. In 2019, America raised just $17 billion from its inheritance tax. If instead we were willing to tax estates above $1 million with a progressive rate structure, starting at 30% and going up to 75%, for estates above $20 million, we would be able to raise approximately $130 billion annually. But an inheritance tax by itself is not enough, and economists have another tool to help close the wealth gap. We also need to implement a national land value tax. A land value tax is an annual percentage tax, say 3%, on the value of only the land. It is different from a property tax because it excludes the value of the house or building sitting on the land. Economists love land taxes. In 1978, Milton Friedman declared it the least bad tax. And even earlier, Henry George's book on land taxes, Progress and Poverty, sold more copies in America in the 1890s than any other book, except the Bible. The reason for this popularity, at least among economists, is that typically taxing a good lowers supply and raises price. It's for this reason that we tax cigarettes to deter smoking, or tax gasoline to deter frivolous driving. But land is different, in that its supply is fixed. And as long as landowners are competing with each other for renters, whose numbers and willingness to pay are unaffected, the tax should not be passed on in higher rents. The other reason taxing land values is so adored by nerdy economists is its fairness. No person has a moral claim on the land itself. And when the government builds roads, installs lights, and expands transport links, the value of land increases without any effort from the landowner. No landowner deserves these windfall gains. The value of land in America is estimated at $23 trillion. A national land value tax of 3% would raise almost $700 billion for the government every single year. This could be used to help close the wealth gap, improving education for our children and healthcare for us all. I'm not delusional. These tax reforms alone won't end inequality. Inequality is a deeply rooted issue in our society that will take a coalition of politicians, advocates, and business leaders years of hard work to change. But I'm hopeful that tax reforms can be a part of the solution. My mother and father should enjoy the wealth that they have created over a lifetime of hard work. But while they are alive, a land value tax should ensure that their wealth is not enriched by windfall gains of property prices. And when they pass away, I hope I live in a society where any wealth they leave behind is donated or taxed.